it was a great company to be a part of because they were doing these initiatives for a very long time, meaning sustainability initiatives, small things, trying things out. This is a weekly kind of internal communication effort that we've done ever since 2004 with our employees. We have some early products that people remember us for, with these kind of organic interlayers. We tried to take back our material or reuse material starting way back in 2005. We're reinventing this program a little bit, but a lot of these things, you start these things out early on, and sometimes they just don't work. I think that's a big lesson along the way. Try things, see how they do. Skipping past some of our kind of internal cultural things. We also participate in a lot of kind of artisan programs around the world, but we also have a foundation we participated in. And these were kind of opportunities that came up along the way, and I think become these little additive pieces to your sustainability universe. And also materials that sometimes just don't work. I mean, this was 100% recycled material back in 2009. I think it was just too early. We ended up discontinuing it. Also, this one was something that we just didn't, it was hard to, frankly, it was hard to make, but we also discontinued this material. It's probably going to be pretty relevant today. Early on, we were doing HPDs in the early days. So it was like this opportunity came up. I mean, HPDs now are a big deal, right? We hear that term, health product declaration. This is actually something that is not terribly hard to get in the universe of labels. So this is one where if you're a company out there and you're thinking about some of these things, you might pick some of the labels that are kind of easy to do to just get your foot wet on some of these, because there's some really hard ones out there. I think there's a lot of other pieces to just kind of how you talk about sustainability, not just the labels, but also who you are as a company. We as a company talk a lot about our own people. This is we take health actually very seriously inside the company. This is a gym located at our headquarters building. And so certainly it looks like a nice spot, but what it is it means that we can keep our healthcare lower for employees and things like that. These are just good things to do as a company. And at the end of the day, they actually are very sustainable things to do. And so I'm kind of showing these all as maybe little lessons to just maybe who you are as a company. If you actually kind of do some of these things already, talk about them. And that's why we did Declare Label. This actually in the lighting universe, this is what really got us kind of thinking about this. We were asked a long time ago, 2016, could we do a Declare Label, which is red list free, all the bad ingredients are disclosed or removed for a lighting fixture. And we were the first lighting company to do this. And I thought, wow, what a cool thing to try to do. And fortunately, the ingredients were pretty clean. So again, another example of a great label that I think shows that you're doing something that is worth, kind of talking about. There's lots of things I think here that are conversation points, but I'm just skipping to the ones that make sense. This was also mentioned. We started to play around with recycled material in new ways, going back to what we did 10 years ago. But this is an exciting material that we're starting to print with. I think I don't know if I have a picture of that. We just started printing with ocean plastic a year and a half ago, and LightArt sort of took on the evolution of this. And it's like, what can we do with this ocean plastic, right? It's a huge topic. But can you actually make beautiful things out of it? And maybe even, consider upscaling a little bit of the original form factor of whatever it was. So those are things where like sometimes they're experiments, but sometimes they become, I think, very meaningful efforts. And I think that's something that is kind of cool to think about too. This was another product that we started to think about, recycling our own material. Is there a technology inside your company where you can actually reuse something or remake something? And then this is talking about our people. We just got the Just label last year, which is a social equity label. One of 5 manufacturing companies to get this. This is we're proud about this because this is a kind of an indicator of who we are as a company and how we treat our employees. Another sustainability label in the monster universe of these labels. And there is a million of them. I think that's another point to all this is I don't know which one of these are right at the end of the day. It seems like that scale keeps moving. But what we do know is there are things that are worth talking about. There are things worth doing that can become I think very important, you know, in terms of how we navigate this future. And EPDs is a good example. There's a lot of people asking for EPDs now. These, you know, declare label, just label, they are meaningful. They tell you a lot about who you are as a company. I'll skip through images of LightArt because really I just wanted to mention, oh, there's ocean plastic. I thought I had it in there. Because you can just try something that gives you a chance to get your feet wet. And that's really, I think, my message today is, you know, kind of starting lighting in a new way, starting as kind of the little person out there, a little company out there. You know, you don't have a lot of room to do very much, but if you can just try something, it's better than nothing. And actually maybe it might become kind of interesting or meaningful, or might have a worthy attention that takes you to something else. And so that's kind of what I like to always encourage people to think about is, you know, and these are all things that end of the day are just like good things, right? I mean, they're not sort of 10-year goals. They're like, we can do this next year. We can do this in a couple of years. This is actually something we can move towards. So with that, Sarah, I will turn back over to you for questions. Tried to keep that really brief.
You did great. In fact, you needed like 3 more minutes back to the pool, so well done. Does anybody have any questions, comments directly for Ryan based on what he just shared? I actually have one. Can you talk a little bit about the process of recycling the ocean plastic and how you convince somebody to say, yeah, let's make that into a replicable process?
That was hard. We actually found a great company, a partner to work with, Ocean Works, and they supply all sorts of materials that are collected from different parts of the world. Really transparent story. And we thought, okay, well, they have a wonderful story, a good supply chain, which is the most important, because a lot of times recycled content is hard to find, or you can only find so much of it, and then it's not available and it's inconsistent and all those kind of things. So we finding that source was important, and then just trying it. I mean, we have this very cool printing process that we learned a lot about. You know, it took us a couple of years on the previous models, but we were just seeing if it would work. And I know our engineers and designers spent a lot of time kind of trying to work this out. And, you know, a lot of these things sometimes are time that, you know, you don't get back, right? You have to just sort of believe in it. And you know, the idea is this the end all be all for what we're hoping to do? No, this is a way for us to talk about, does recycled material work? Does ocean plastic work? Is there something here that we can keep doing in the future? In 5 years, could we have a lot of our products made out of recycled content? So the end goal is to think about something much bigger and take the baby steps to get there. But man, it's hard working with recycled content. That was one lesson we learned.
Awesome.
I do have a question too, if I may.
Yeah.
So when you have such an aspirational work that is inspiring to others, and then your products are usually in the area that is much more visible in architectural space, those usually get some sort of message out, even like with the explanation or some sort to the users, so that they actually have some context of what they have, just not just the object that's in front of them, but how it got here.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of the communication of,
Yeah, because
you
I would
know,
love to see if I see the beautiful products, but not just that this form is beautiful or the shape is, you know, the lighting is beautiful, but like, how does this get here? Because that has so much more story than the form of it, the color of it, the light quality of it. And I think that has a more deeper message too.
Yeah, yeah. And I think answering that maybe kind of collectively, you know, I think that's a hard thing for a lot of manufacturers right now. We're trying to figure out, how do we message those kinds of things, so that, is it a big label on the box, you know, or on the spec sheet? And, you know, do the labels mean anything? Are you able to sort of track that back to something? I know there's a lot of greenwashing, you know, in the historically, you know, between these topics. So, you know, trying to make it as honest as possible and trying to make it as obvious as possible. But, you know, it's hard because everyone has only so much kind of bandwidth to absorb things. It's a challenge for us right now. And, you know, if you can get attention on these topics, even if you're manufacturing something that's kind of behind the scenes, maybe the most important part of it is the ingredients, and that's what you're marketing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions? I want to remind you that you can also pop things in the chat and we can come back.
I remember the LA2 fixture was the fixture that had the declare label. Are there other ones that have the declare label now? Like, how many fixtures do you have that have that designation?
Yeah, we have, we definitely have a lot more. We keep adding it. Most recently, Ocean Coil has that designation for obvious reasons. But this is another challenge in this space is, every one you have to do, you have to register and go through the work, and it's a lot of effort, and that's also the part that's hard to navigate. I mean, there's cost and effort and all those things, and hopefully we keep adding. That's our goal, to keep making more transparency, keep creating things that have this transparency to it. But it's a work in progress for sure.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Now I'm going to invite Benjamin, to unmute. And there we go. And Ben, you have the floor. Can you talk to us about what's happened at Lightly and maybe a little bit about Light Glass too?
Yeah, certainly. And thank you, Ryan, for breaking the ice here. And thank you to everyone for being here. Just you being here and being part of this discussion is going to lead to faster progress in this area. So I'm very honored to be here, and also thankful to all of you for listening in and joining the discussion.
All right.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen here, and if you wouldn't mind muting just so it's easy to hear.
Yeah, trying to find the person that's lighting up, but I
think it might be.
Looks like Faith.
Sorry,
Yeah, I think it's Faith.
Taking care of it.
Let me see if I can't.
Did you want this, Chewy?
There we go.
There it is. Thank you very much. Awesome. So, yeah, I want to tell you a little bit about our journey at Lightly, and there's a lot of points that I hope to get across very quickly and also in a very impactful way. And I hope it inspires some thought and discussion and questions from you all. Before I jump into this presentation, I should say that the progress that our team has made has been a team effort. I have the honor of being here to be the face today in this meeting for what we've accomplished, but it was not me who deserved most of the credit. There's a team of really talented engineers and researchers and artists and designers who have all contributed to what I'm about to show you, and they deserve just as much credit, if not more, than I do. So just to start us off, I know it's not so glamorous to look at an old email, but what I want to show you is this is the email that started our sustainability journey in our company in terms of material sustainability. We started we started in LED lighting over a decade ago with the intention of helping reduce operational carbon and help with energy efficiency and energy performance, but we didn't think about material sustainability at all until this meeting. And I visited CEGF in Seattle. And after the meeting, they sent a thank you note. Thanks, we liked your presentation. Here are the criteria for the human health category of ZGF Green Dot program. So they created a program and they sent it to me and they said, your product needs to meet one of these 6 criteria or we're not specifying it. And this was the first time I had heard this from a design firm, even though I had visited hundreds of architecture firms before this. And you see she attached a document for me. And this is what that document looked like. She showed all of these different sustainability rating systems and criteria and language. At the time that, I don't know if you saw the date, this was August 2021. At the time, I didn't know what any of these terms meant. I didn't know what a declare label was or a health product declaration. And when I took a look at this list and saw that I didn't understand it, I became very curious, and same with our team. But I also became worried. And that worry translated into an email from me to our entire executive team and our engineering team, which without making you read the whole thing on the screen here, it said, I went to ZGF. They're one of the top architects in the world. They have sustainability requirements for any products that they specify. And I said, we have a design challenge. It seems like sustainability in architectural product manufacturing is moving from a nice to have to being required. And we can't claim to meet any of these 6 criteria on this document. And I said, we need to make a larger commitment to sustainability, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it will be necessary for our growth. And so the reason I'm sharing these emails with you is because a conversation with a designer is what inspired us to start thinking about material sustainability in addition to what we were already thinking about, and inspired me with enough worry and fear and hope at the same time to send this email out to our engineering team to encourage them to start thinking about it. And when they started thinking about it, they started finding really promising, encouraging, beautiful things that led to where we are today. And so I want you to know that you have a very powerful voice, and that there are manufacturers out there that are listening. And when you tell us things like this and you demand sustainability, there are those of us who listen and will act upon it and will take it seriously. And this is now a little over 2 years ago. So after I presented this case to the engineering team, we asked ourselves, is there really a problem here? Or is this just another thing that designers are asking for that we should kind of, put on the priority list, right? We do think about it like that. And so we had to figure out for ourselves, is there actually a problem with the material sustainability of lighting? And luckily, we found a few documents and analyses from our friends to help us. One was from the Rocky Mountain Institute. They put together this roadmap for the federal government to reach its carbon goals. And, if aside from the analysis I'm about to show you, you should see this document as the federal government, one of the largest real estate developers in the world, trying to figure out how can it measure its carbon emissions, track it, limit it, create frameworks and plans to just build in a more sustainable way. And so that's a really big indicator to all of us in this industry that this is coming, whether we choose it or not. This is going to become something that we're required to do and that we're not prepared for as a lighting industry. And so when we look at the RMI data, you can see that they're breaking out the embodied carbon, not the operational carbon here, the embodied carbon of different types of building materials. And, one thing that stuck out to me is lighting is not even broken out here. And that's been the case for a lot of the research we've done, where lighting has kind of been an exception in material sustainability for a long time. And so you see it's really grouped into the interiors bucket here. And you can see on the left side, this is what it looks like for new construction. On the right side, this is an interior fit out. Obviously, the structural materials are going to be the worst emitters in new construction. But in a fit out project, interiors and a few other items, glazing, are really high embodied carbon emitters. But this didn't really answer our question, because lighting's not broken out. Is lighting really a problem? Is the material sustainability a problem? One thing that's interesting, though, is this RMI report listed out the kilograms per surface area of CO2 that these different types of building materials emitted, and put them on a list. And so they listed them in kg CO2 or equivalent per meter squared. We just did the quick math to put you in square feet for us here in the US. And you can see the list here, acoustic ceiling, that's a mineral fiber is really high embodied carbon, and you can see some other things here. But lighting's not included. Then we came across this WeWork Carbon Leadership Forum study from 2019 that does break out lighting in interior fit out products. And when we go to that section of this WeWork document, you can see that interior lighting is about 18 kilograms of CO2 or equivalent per meter squared in its embodied carbon. That translates to 1.7 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per foot squared. And if you map that on the RMI list by surface area, lighting is by actually a lot the highest emitter of embodied carbon in an interior fit out project. So what we discovered is that not only is it partially our responsibility to help solve this problem as a manufacturer, that we may be one of the worst contributing pieces of any construction process to embodied carbon emissions. And that is extremely important for us to solve the material sustainability issues in lighting. So our takeaways here were that lighting is either the highest or within the top 4 highest embodied carbon emitters in an interior fit out. And that's right next to HVAC hardware, to the rubber underlayment under flooring, and then like storefront systems, like glazing systems with glass and aluminum are very high carbon materials. And so this helped us understand we need to think about this problem more deeply. And we started to ask questions. How do we reduce the embodied carbon of lighting? How do we remove the toxicity from lighting and the lighting supply chain, not just our end product, but the entire supply chain from raw material all the way through its reuse as a new raw material at the end of its life? And how do we how do we get a supply chain? Where are we going to find a supply chain for this? And if the supply chain is established in metal and plastics, how do we do something different? And then another question is, how do we even know when our fixtures have reached the end of their life? It's not typical for a contractor to call us when they're uninstalling our products and telling us, hey, do you want to do something with this? Do you want to buy this back? And so we started asking all these questions and many, many more. And it didn't take very long for us to find infographics like this that show us what high embodied carbon materials are, what low embodied carbon materials are. Towards the bottom of this pyramid are the lowest carbon emitters. And as you can see, they're mostly natural or natural-based materials. Towards the top of the pyramid are higher carbon materials, what you would expect, metals and glass. And so what we started to do is play with the materials that we saw at the bottom of the pyramid. We played with bamboo and different types of wood, maple, oak, poplar, walnut. We played with hemp. We played with different engineered organic materials like engineered hardwoods and things where it starts as an organic material and we put some modern twist on it and try and make it a little more durable or high performance or whatever it may be. And one of the beautiful things is that as our engineering team began playing with things like with sheep's wool and wood and hemp, we found that they were better than metal in a lot of ways, and not that we weren't really going to have to make trade-offs in order to offer a sustainable product at a fair price. And one of the first times we felt really, really good about our decisions to go down this very difficult path as a small company is when we visited our supply chain for lumber. If you know Light Glass, it's an aluminum product, and we made it before we even started this journey with Lightly. But when we go on to visit our aluminum extruders for Light Glass, it does not look like this. This is where we're going instead of our aluminum extruders for Lightly. We don't have to go to a heavy metal smelting plant or a finishing plant. We're going to a forest, and we're walking through the forest, and we're there with the individuals who are selecting and harvesting trees, who are planting new trees. And it's so nice to breathe this fresh air instead of going to some industrialized part of town and entering a metal extrusion plant. And instead of going to an oil refinery where we can get plastic for PET or for different optical components, this is where we get our wool from sheep. And again, it's like when you see these natural images and when you visit and see these places with your own eyes, it's a true pleasure to be there instead of where you would have been with a heavy industrial product. And what we ended up with after playing for well over a year are a few platforms that are pretty interesting designs for lighting. And again, this is not, I don't deserve credit for these designs. A lot of people were involved in the design of these products. But the butterfly was our flagship design. It went through several iterations. Some things that are special about it are it has no plastic in it. So it has absolutely no PVC, no petrochemicals. There is nothing plastic in there at all. Even the power cord is PVC free. It's it's a pendant and it has really great performance. It can deliver over 1,400 lumens per foot at 140 lumens per watt. And it's very, very sustainable. And I'll show you how in just a minute. Here you can see us playing with different sizes for the profile to see, what thickness of wood do we need, for it to not bend and for us to be able to do continuous runs and achieve a lot of the capabilities that lighting is capable of in metal and plastic. And it really turned out to be a beautiful design. not just functional, but really, really gorgeous. And we created the butterfly and the glow platform that you see here. And together they're surface mounted, suspended, lighting. We're going to continue to expand on these platforms. We've installed them in several projects, and they're doing a great job. And this was a really interesting photo that I took on my cell phone. This is wood and this is aluminum right here, hanging right next to each other. And so, one of the bottlenecks we could talk about when trying to build adoption for sustainable lighting is that people think the wood look isn't right for every project. And so having an option where you can make it seem white like any other white fixture has helped us through that. We did go through the process of publishing and verifying an environmental product declaration. This was a very intensive process. I would say it took us 6 months of information gathering. I know I'm short on time here, so I'll wrap it up.
I didn't mean to unmute, but there we did. I did it by accident.
No problem. So we went through this process. I would love to see some more benchmarks of what is a good embodied carbon number for a 4-foot linear fixture cradle to gate. We came out at 26.4 kilograms of CO2, and we believe, based on our analysis of light glass, that's about half the carbon footprint. It also ended up being half the weight of a metal fixture, which has all kinds of savings. And as I mentioned, very high performance. We published declare labels that show everything we make is red list free, but more importantly, 95% biodegradable, because we expect that it will end up in the landfill at the end of its life. And I'm super excited about some other natural materials. I'm just wrapping it up here. Reishi mushrooms are stronger than concrete, can be used as a structural material or lighting housing material. Spider webs are stronger than steel. They have high transmittance. My engineering team thinks I'm crazy for recommending these. We use spider webs to hang light fixtures, but we'll see if we can get that to go anywhere. These are a list of internal company sustainability initiatives that are easy, I believe, easy to start doing for any manufacturer. So things like adding sustainability as a design principle for all new products you're designing, so that it's a piece of the decision making, using digital materials, not purchasing single-use plastics, reducing your HVAC, lighting, and commuting costs. We moved our production team to a 4-day work week to reduce their commuting energy costs and also to give them more time at home. And composting, considering a life for your materials, your scrap material. And then the last thing I wanted to leave you with is some of the obstacles we're facing, and maybe this will spark some discussion. There's definitely a lack of knowledge right now. I think that time will help fix this, and the people in this room will help fix this. A lot of the lighting community specifically is just becoming familiar with EPDs and what the term embodied carbon means, and all the different rating systems and metrics and how to measure. And the more we can work together to help build that knowledge base, the faster the industry will make progress. There's a lot of fear about value engineering. So even if someone personally cares about sustainability, it can cause fear to choose a more expensive product in our industry it may get taken off the job. There's a perception that wood is a specialty material in lighting, and we think organic sustainable materials should be the norm, not as considered specialty materials. And then there's a lot of different layers and middle people and middle organizations in our communication and physical material supply chain, which can misconstrue information and make it hard for the experts to share information with each other. So those are some of the obstacles we're facing. And if you want to talk more about these outside of this meeting, here's my contact information. But I went a little bit over. Thank you for the time.
No worries. I hate to cut you short or make you rush because there's so much good stuff to pick at there. Does anybody, before I ask any questions, does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask Ben?
I have just a quick one. And is this a presentation that's tailored specifically for this crowd, or is this your regular, like when you go into a firm, is this the same sort of presentation, same way you would present Lightly to a designer?
I made this presentation specifically for this crowd, and I made a lot of similar points, but there is a different presentation that's much more, I guess, product focused.
Okay. Yeah, because I love and I appreciate this story so much that like I would love to hear more of a little bit more story. Like when we do products, like of course, like all of the criteria of the products, like we want to know all of the like the nerdy details, but it's so rare to get so much backstory. And so it's just, I really appreciated it more. And I'm pretty familiar with your product, and I learned something already just from this. So just saying, I really appreciate that. It's great.
Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, we'll try to incorporate the story in a way that's considerate of people's time, but I think that's great feedback.
Bernhard, go ahead. You look like you're unmuted, but I'm not hearing you. Is anybody else hearing him? Maybe it's me.
I don't hear him. You could also write in the chat.
Yeah, it's not coming through on the audio. While you type it, maybe. Justin, I see your hand up.
So I was specifically enthralled, I guess, and wanted to maybe know more about where that the spider web hanging might end up developing.
It's
So
too
because
early to
that
say, because right now it's just me trying to convince the engineering team that this material is organic, biodegradable, renewable, and at least 5 times stronger than what we're currently using to hang lighting. Some of the obstacles there are you can't yet do power over spider web. So there'll be a separate power cable. We faced that same issue with hemp.
right.
And you know, there's probably some hesitation on the perception of spider web as a material, but I think it would be super cool because it would look like your fixture is just floating there. Aside from the power cord, it would look like it's just floating there in
Right.
midair.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was really interesting. Thanks, Benjamin.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have more progress on it.
The danger of the bleeding edge. Bernhard, did we get you back? Any chance?
I see something in the chat.
Here we go. My question, technically, one is adding fuel for building fires into the space compared to aluminum. I about wood. Any points to address?
That's very true.
Again, quickly, I know you can do this quickly.
Okay. Yes, wood is flammable because of the amount of surface area of the lighting compared to the total surface area of the ceiling. There's no special fire ratings that's required for these products, but we did speak with firefighters. They told us about what it's like when they go into a burning building with aluminum and plastic fixtures, about how the diffusers are melting and falling as hot liquid from the ceiling. And we think charred ash falling from the ceiling would be a little bit preferable to that. But my real overarching feeling is I would hope everyone's out of the building by the time the fire's reaching any lighting, no matter what's up there, wood or metal, or whatever else.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, I don't want to shortchange Jane because I know she's got a lot to add too. So Ben, I'm going to ask you to relinquish the screen. And Jane, I am
all right.
Take your spotlight away. Thank you so much. And Jane, I'm going to put the spotlight on you and ask you to talk us about what happened at Fine Light before you left and what you're thinking about from LeGrand on a bigger scale.
Yeah, and give me 1 second because I don't know that I have the share screen power right now. Oh, there we go, Windows. For some reason, my PowerPoint isn't coming up, guys, and I apologize for that.
That's okay. We can tap dance for a minute.
We practiced.
Got it.
And it's just not showing up. Sorry, guys. Just
you want to, I mean, it's up to you. You could, if you want to leave and rejoin or what you'd like to do to.
Yep, I'm just going to maybe. Well, who needs presentation anyway? For some reason.
So I can see your screen. Oh, there we go. So something was coming up.
Yeah, so maybe I'll close my PowerPoint again. But one, sign me up for a mushroom fixture when they're ready, Ben, because I'm kind of very excited about that idea. So, I think, barring having a presentation here, I'm going to try it one more time, and then I'm going to move because we are short of time, and I'll just speak to my story. There we go. Share.
Bingo.
Can you see it? Right on. All right.
Yes.
Good to go.
So this, I'm giving a little plug here to, LightArt, Sarah and crew did an amazing video almost a year and a half ago called The Time Is Now. And it really was taking, and several people on this call, Melissa and Raiko, were all bringing an architect, a lighting designer, and manufacturers together to talk about this opportunity, what sustainability means. And statement I made in that was, we do have a once in a generation opportunity to change the things we're doing. And I wanted to just emphasize, you just heard some very exciting, developments. And I think the one thing that I find to be very interesting about sustainability versus other trends in lighting is we're all rooting for each other in this particular case. I don't look at somebody else coming out with a new fixture and saying like, I wish I'd done that. I go like, that's cool. I'm really interested in that. And so the way things are evolving is happening faster. But projects, I don't know if you've noticed, are slowing down a little bit. So we used to have this world where you were working on a building. By the time I got an order, the specification was 4 years old, and don't even talk to a contractor about changing things. And that was very much present during the LED revolution, you choose the word, because people were reading about it and they wanted to do it now, but there was just no way. Things were going too fast. Fixtures needed to be there tomorrow. People were moving in next week. Now we're probably seeing, and at the time coming out of COVID, and still we're seeing a world where people are getting very good at stopping projects and starting them again, and stopping them and starting them again. And so every single time that happens, you have an opportunity to look and see what has developed since the last time you updated the specification or you made a recommendation. And I think that if we don't take advantage of this time, we're not going to change things, because the reality is, maybe not tomorrow, but within a year, we're probably going to be back to that old cadence of manic decisions and get it there tomorrow. And if we don't change the way we're thinking right now, we will not be able to influence those projects. So, think about all the things you heard about today, because I'm pretty, impressed with everything, and carry that forward to your project, and make sure you're not reusing 4-year-old ideas when you have an opportunity to influence next. So that's my number one takeaway for today, is use this time wisely. So, this is a slide I developed probably about 3 or 4 years ago, mostly, in response to a challenge from a colleague who, this was not a curious question, not like, oh, Jane, tell me about sustainable manufacturing. It was a challenge. Well, what is it anyway? As if to say, you could make it anything you want. It's not that important. And for me, I was so incensed. I'm like, what do you mean? This is really important. And so I, immediately had to sit down and kind of scribble this. And I saw the person who took my mad scribblings and made it beautiful log on to here. So thank you, Philip. It still carries forward today. But when you talk about what sustainable manufacturing is, it starts with what you make. And again, you have to have LEDs that last long. They have to run cool. It's got to be serviceable. It's got to be controllable. And what you make in terms of sustainability, that's probably where I spent 20 years of my career, just understanding how to teach people to lay out fixtures, at half a watt a square foot. Some of you may remember task vertical ambient. We were kind of pioneering that idea to bring down the ambient level of the light in every office place. But then probably about 5 or 6 years ago, for us, it was about 2019 when our specifiers and customers started coming to us. It's what goes into what we make. And that's when we began our journey on product transparency. We were one of the first to get red list free for 90% of our products. And that was a Herculean effort, where Bernhard on this call was a driver of that. And there's a few others, but that was a lot of work and a lot of commitment. And so working through all of these elements of what goes into our fixture, making sure it's red list approved or red list free when possible, pushing your vendors to get to that next level, and working as EPDs as a standard practice. And that's a process that's underway at Fine Light right now. And someone, will be updating you guys on how that's going there. And then it's how you make it. You know, I'm just reiterating, well, utilizing, you've seen it today, utilizing 3D printing, minimizing waste. Those are all the places where you have the ability to influence and make the overall product experience better, not just what the luminaire looks like. And I've spent so maybe 6 years in those two circles. And now I'm into the who makes it. So I'm 6 months into my new job, barely. And really, this is a part of an incredible part of sustainable manufacturing. And, you know, we heard about the Just label from Ryan, and it's understanding who's making your product, making sure you're following your corporate social responsibility fulfilled for all those workers. I'm also on the executive working group for diversity vendors and opportunities there. So understanding even your tier 2 or tier 3 vendors, making sure you're not repeating the issues around how the workers are being treated and what kind of conditions they're working in. And then finally, we've also talked a little bit about this, but this is early days, I think, in the lighting industry to talk about taking back, recycling, reusing, refurbishing. We need to understand, we need to create a network that allows for those conversations to happen. You know, again, some of the, you know, back to 2020, we've also been testing biodegradable packaging. This is an incredible, it's a win-win-win because it saves, you know, both in the timing of unpacking, it saves in a lot of ways, it actually keeps the fixtures very safe. It's been a little bit of a hard sell, though, I have to tell you, that people want, give me my box, I want my traditional packaging. And so we're going to have to come up with new ways to kind of break the dam there in terms of people resisting something that is better both for them and the environment. But it's new. And usually the people who are making the decisions about packaging isn't the specifier. So you have to be thinking, you know, knowing all the features a manufacturer offers so you can put those in your narrative and say, you know, I want somebody to be able to have this feature to be able to, you know, deliver the fixtures. Other things we've talked about, you know, this is the joy of going last, you know, we too, and again, when I talk about FineLight and LeGrand, FineLight's my most recent experience in the lighting world, but now I'm in LeGrand, which has a variety of companies all looking and focused of this. So you kind of talk about the small to medium-sized company. This is $1 billion company that's very focused on making these decisions and making things the right way. So exploring all sorts of different options for lighting fixtures. Again, using, you know, looking at DRAM and all the things that, you know, can we pioneer new ways to make lenses and end caps and products? And I got to underscore, when you talk about a company like FineLight, we're making things in the miles every day. And so it's got to be something that is practical, something that's going to last, something that's going to live up to a 10-year warranty. And so a lot of thought and collaboration with specifiers will be going behind every decision we make, because we know it's got to last for a long time. You know, I think focused on FineLight for a minute, you know, you can see that for years we've been focused on telling people how to recycle our fixtures. And one of my favorite humans on earth, Aaron Smith, is really driving all the innovation now at FineLight. So, you know, he is looking into the future. He is driving the EPD development, reducing fixture weights, which we talked about. Ryan talked about how much that saves in terms of carbon, eliminating single-use plastics, evaluating packaging, sourcing raw materials, and leading the way in design versus assembly. And I think it's understanding the product's end of life before you even start drawing it or creating it in CAD is a really critical mindset that everybody needs to be thinking about as they pull things together. 3D printing, again, expands all sorts of opportunities. And I think probably the most important thing to me right now is, you know, I can speak about FineLight for a while, but I can speak very proudly about all my sister companies at LeGrand that are making headway. You know, OCL Lighting, as you guys may know well, is way more bespoke. They're not making miles of everything a day. So the effort to take these interesting fixtures that are meeting a specifier specific need, and being able to get a declare label, yeah, and a red list free is a major accomplishment. And those are some of the challenges. It could be a fastener that slows you down because you can't get the source in the material. It could be the paint mixture that's proprietary. So you have to be fierce. You have to really push for these things if you believe in it. And so, you know, both Pinnacle and Focal Point and all of the businesses are deeply involved in this. And it's even beyond, you know, the lighting world. I've got 29 companies who are thinking just like I'm talking about here, whether it's, you know, using recycled materials, getting rid of single-use plastics, publishing EPDs. So it's the power of many getting out there, sharing this information, collaborating with each other to make it, you know, to make progress, to make sure that we are treating this climate emergency just that way. It is an emergency. This is just a photograph of one of our very first Red List approved products. This lighting design team was determined not to make any sacrifices in the quality of light, but to absolutely have a Red List and Red List free, Red List approved and Red List free facility. So I galloped, again, trying not to repeat, but just know that this is a great opportunity and I'm just ready for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jane. I think maybe we got a comment in the chat. Thank you, Jane. This is what we need to focus, not just about the product alone, but also who makes it, how sourcing those materials impact our total ecology on the planet. We do need to widen our lens when it comes to product specification. And I'm glad to hear that you guys are looking at it. It's certainly, it's interesting to see the cycle that you describe, because I'm seeing a lot of companies are following that. Okay, we've done this part, now it's ready to tackle this. And, you know, hopefully there's some momentum that builds at the beginning and carries through as you continue.
Yeah, I think, you know, speaking of Aaron Smith, you know, who is leading this effort for Fine Light and influencing other businesses as well, he said something that just stayed with me, that an EPD is a starting point. It's where you see the vulnerabilities in your fixture or your supply chain. And it is something that you continuously look on. And it's not like, good, I have my EPD. It's like, what do I need to work on to make this better? And that just stayed with me when he said it.
For sure. Does anyone else have any questions? I know that we're at our 6 o'clock or at our hour, depending on where you are. But I think we could probably stay on for a minute or two if anybody had a question, or if you had a question for one of our other panelists and didn't get a chance to answer it.
Can I ask one question to Jane? Hi, Jen.
Hi.
I always loved hearing of your idea of some of the Taking Back program that you were thinking. And is there something that you could share that, like, you had a story that, like, how one could have done it, and any case that you can share with us that, like, in your past experience?
So
because that's
I don't have a
interesting.
lighting story, but I have a LeGrand story. And one of that is we have a company called Connect Track, and they make busways and kind of very complicated things. And they have started a program where they're taking these components back and outfitting them and then sending them back to the customer. So they've, you know, and that's something we are going to be able to learn from, because when you look at this busway, the first thing I said is, that looks a lot like a light fixture, you know, maybe, you know, with a driver, but it looks, you know, it has end caps, it has length. And so they're figuring out a way to service their customers by upgrading, upfitting these components. There's other areas where our audiovisual division is now working with a consultant to try to figure out, okay, what is the practice? I mean, here, you know, AV is something that it's outdated. It's 5 minutes, you know, it outdates itself very quickly. So a light fixture can stay up there for 20 years, and many have. But the audiovisual, you're missing out on technology. So they're actually doing a deep dive and trying to figure out exactly how they can help their customers keep that AV equipment just tech tech savvy way into the future. So it's ongoing support. I think there's a variety of reasons. I also know that our BCS Wattstopper division, came up with ways to send out firmware updates and be able to I don't have to go buy a new sensor because, my fixture stopped working or this stopped working. I can get an update that's going to make it work, and I don't have to replace that thing for 25 years. And so these are all things that I think that the various companies are working on. And again, top down, we're getting, you as my customer and specifier say, Jane, you really need to think about this. Well, I've got a whole group of people in France who hey, this is really important. As a member of our company, you have to take this seriously. And we expect you to work for a more sustainable, better climate.
Goodness. It's excellent to have somebody to point to and, and leading the way. So thank you for that.
Sure.
I wanted to ask one other question. If I know we're at time and I'm graciously, everybody's staying around. So, but Ryan, I'm going to bring you back in, and Ben, I'm going to bring you back in if I can. Maybe, how can I do that? I take Reiko away real quick. Excuse me. And the question I'm going to ask you is, we asked manufacturers to do some things in our letter. Luckily, you probably were already hoping to do them anyway in your own way. But what can the design community, the specification community do for manufacturers? I've been hosting some conversations about sustainability in a lot of different contexts and got some feedback that sometimes taking, if you're a regional, taking it back and your engineering team isn't sold, you need some ammo too. So there's all kinds of different things that may come to mind, other than, of course, specification, which is probably the number one thing we can do to support you. But anything come to mind that the design community can do to help manufacturers on their journey? Maybe I'll go to, because I don't want you to fight over it. I'm going to go in the order that we reversed in. So Jane, you're always good on the spot. Can I ask you to go first?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think there's an understanding, there's maybe a myth that sustainable fixtures are going to be more expensive. That, by definition, the more we are pioneering, the more commonplace these parts are going to be. So but you've also heard there's a tremendous amount of effort and negotiation and follow through and commitment to quality that goes through this. So while the sustainability effort, the sustainable manufacturer, it may not be more expensive, it can't be compared to the lowest common denominator. So you can't expect a manufacturer to innovate constantly to do the right thing and then put it on an equal footing with something that doesn't have any of these characteristics. And so thinking about like fixtures against like fixtures, I just think that's a really important, because again, manufacturers, they need to understand their products are going to be utilized in this way. They're going to, be on projects, and it's really tough to make these investments if we don't have that support.
Awesome. Thanks. Ben, can you answer the same question?
Yeah, certainly. I agree with a lot of what Jane has to say, especially about kind of adopting innovation. But some of the things we can do today to help solve this problem are, if your firm doesn't have a sustainability expert, you take the responsibility for being that sustainability expert and train yourself and start to drive that discussion in your firm. I can tell you it doesn't take that long to start doing that from personal experience. You can start to try and really figure out what the value proposition is for the sustainability of your design, so that can help you communicate it clearly to your client. I think that connects to what Jane is saying, that sometimes sustainability takes some investment initially in its early days, and sustainability doesn't have to be more expensive, but innovation costs money, and you're comparing that against things that have kind of been the same version of the same thing for a long time. So how are we going to convince our ultimate clients to invest in these things? They may not care personally about sustainability and carbon emissions. So I think it's almost a sales challenge on top of a design challenge, to figure out how do you communicate this to your specific customer in a way that really helps secure the investment in sustainable design. And I would love to have more conversation about it and see if there's anything as manufacturers we can do to assist you, providing visuals or more information up front or whatever it may be, help you protect your design and your decisions, your holistic design, just the lighting. So that's what comes to mind.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you to take a look at the toolkit and the decision trees and add any other comments, because I'm sure you could probably layer in something. All right, Ryan, last word. You go for it.
Well, I'm going to help tie this back to mindful materials. We have had the privilege of working with Annie Bevan this year, which has been wonderful. And, you know, the biggest question I've had in this whole universe is like, can someone just get to a single framework that we can follow? You know, there's like hundreds literally of labels and things. I'm like, can't someone just pick the top 5 and just tell us what they are so we can focus on those? And I think Mindful Materials is doing a nice job of doing the buckets, the 5 buckets. And, you know, I saw really my advice kind of collectively is if the industry and, you know, kind of signing on to the pledge here, if the industry can kind of rally around, you know, just pick a few top line things and then let us all know, because then we can, you know, not have to chase our tails on too many random little things. But if we're all focusing on kind of a couple of you know, hopefully like good things, right? Major things, that just focuses our work. Otherwise, you know, it's like 100 requests for 100 different directions. So it's hard to do. We want to do it, but kind of getting that universality, I think, is so important in this conversation.
What are the big rocks that can, you know, I'm taking some notes so I can tell my compadres that aren't here, you know, what was asked for. So thanks for that. Well, I think we better wrap up because now we're 10 minutes over and I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I'm grateful for everybody that's stayed so far and hopefully learned a bunch. I want to thank again, Jane and Ryan and Ben for sharing their expertise and standing up and telling us what they have learned and helping us with our continuing journey towards more sustainable lighting. And I just want to remind everybody that we're going to have another one of these in probably about 6 months. And we would love to have you here with us again and potentially maybe contributing some of your lessons learned. So please join then and follow the Mindful Materials newsletter to hear more about it, or follow us on LinkedIn. Melissa Mattis from Slade and Feinstein, Reiko from Slade and Feinstein, Margie McNally from Interior Elements, and myself from Luxie, and we can keep you informed as much as possible. So thanks everybody for joining again today. Thank you, Mindful Materials, for hosting us, and everyone have a lovely rest of your Wednesday. Take care.
Thank you, Sarah.
Everyone.